Yeah, thank you very much. Um, I'm quite happy that people are leaving, so it will allow me to present this with much confidence and stay tuned. So, colleagues, this is just a story about the people of Tshwane and their wetland. So, it dates as far back as more than 30 years, but the first actions were taken in the past 20 years. So this presentation will look at the time before the proclamation of this site as a nature reserve and after proclamation. So I was supervised by Dr. Tracy McKay from the University of South Africa with some funding from Sanbi and UNISA. Joe, what's going on? Please. Okay, so I just jumped to one slide. So this is just an overview of what I will take you through. And it's important for you to note that there is so much that I left out because of the guidelines that were provided to me when I was making this presentation. So I thought at first I must give you an introduction, which is what you know about wetlands in general in South Africa and across the globe. And I thought I must also provide you with some key facts about the study area, because some of you may not even know the site that I'm talking about, and also to give you some sense of the research method I used, including the results as well as the lessons learned. So basically, you know that wetland ecosystem types are very independent. They are resilient to alterations. It's just that if it reaches a certain point, they also give up. And in South Africa, they are one of the most threatened ecosystems. And as such, it was good that we reflect to you what the National Biodiversity Assessment of 2011 told us about them. As of now, until next year when the new NBA comes out, 48% of them are critically endangered. And if I remember well, 65% of them were threatened. And I'm talking about something around 300,000 wetlands. And you know that it's not easy to map the historical occurrence of wetland, although we try using some old land cover maps and the more modernized equipment that we have around. So as of now, we only standing at 11% of wetlands that are protected, and most of them are in FIPA, or the National Freshwater Priority Areas. So for us to have one wetland ecosystem protected is something that I feel is worth noting. So talking about Colbin wetland, in terms of the assessment, it is found to be a channeled valley bottom. And one of the characteristics of a valley bottom wetland is there is a tributary and linear vegetation. And if you look at that photo, it's a linear vegetation on the that's passing that coming across down to the Rhodeblood Dam. And it's just outside the CBD, just about 6 to 7 km outside the CBD. And one thing interesting about this wetland is it's got a pit that's 7,000 years of age. So we felt that's something one has to pay attention to. And one thing that I will explain as we go on is the hectares is just 60. But there was one argument that came in when we were doing this research from the provincial department regarding this number of hectares. And it's important that we also remind you that this wetland is classified as threatened in terms of the national list. And then going forward, it's important to reflect that the fact that the wetland is sitting in the Marikana thornveld vegetation type, as was mapped in the vegetation map. And as such, it's also linked to other, it's also part of the critical biodiversity network, critical biodiversity area network. So for that. And then within it, you find a variety of listed species of fauna and flora. And it was very important that I highlight the fact that the wetland is surrounded by about 500,000 people, and that's about 20% of the 2.5 million people that are living in the city of Tshwane. And it's shocking that when you look at the size of the area, you won't think 500,000 people can be found. So I just put a map for you to see where the CBD is and where the wetland is. You can see the distance that is quite close. So moving on, this is the Marikana Thornfeld vegetation type that I spoke about, and it threatened. And you can see where the wetland is located and where the CBD is. So it's right at the center. And then this is the critical biodiversity area network. You can see the wetland is sitting right there, so that gives it some weight. And then proceeding. So I thought, because the guideline for this presentation was very specific, I should reflect on something like this. You could have heard before people talking about competing land uses and commercial interests. So when we talk about this in the city of Tshwane, this is a serious business. I was looking at the Gauteng Protected Area Expansion Strategy. I know somebody like Greg would know, and you, my colleague. In 2005, they are saying to secure 1 hectare. In 2005, you needed 15,000. So you can imagine now how much it costs. So when we talk about competing land uses, there are guys who really have money that if they put it down, you will see that conservation could be the last thought. And I tried to profile the type of competing land uses and commercial interest, and I found that it's largely housing development. You can see that if there's 500,000, it means there's more that still wants to come in, and as such, there is a need for housing development. And the other thing that was very interesting is the fact that City of Tshwane has adopted what they call smart city. Smart cities is one way in which they're responding to climate change stuff. It's also part of the Paris Agreement and all that. So the problem with it is they wanted what they call park and ride facility. And the area that surrounds this wetland was identified as one of the areas in which that can be piloted within the city. And as such, they chose this site to be one of the park and ride preferred site. And as such, they made a proposal to the right people to say, we've identified this land, so what do we do? And then the community was right on the ground. And the other thing that is very important is the fact that the wetland is right in the interchanges N1 and I think N3 is N4 and other secondary roads that you find within the municipality. And shockingly, when I spoke about the 20 years of the first action that the local residents took, fighting the removal of the wetland, was when they used to call it, I forgot the exact, Spornet, introduced this rail track you're seeing you can see it, or you will see it in the next year as well. Yeah, it's when they introduced what they called a rail track. So the problem with it is it was a very politicized process that never followed procedure. And you remember that was before 1994. So people were not so central in the processes of government decisions. And we were also transiting as a government to new systems, and environment was not central. And other things, you do find a lot of alien invasive species, which is why I showed you the willow that was forming the linear, the vegetation along the tributary here. And then you also have a conflict. I call this conflict from within, because the municipal administrators are having conflict with their political principles, and as a result, they go and mobilize community members. They go and speak to NGOs to tell them what to say to the politicians, because politicians wanted to use administrators to influence the process of altering this wetland. So as a result, we end up having this tension that is there, and other people are frustrated by it, which makes them leave the municipality. So this is the rail track that you see in, and there was a time where there were problems with it sinking, which is why they ended up adding more concrete zones, and you will see this more as you go up, that they were having some serious problems. And just on the side of it, there is a water pipeline that was constructed. So you could see that it was really the preferred site for many things. So given all these challenges, the wetland was proclaimed in 2014 as a nature reserve. And oh goodness, okay, thanks. I'll pass quickly. So as a result, after following all that which has happened before, we then thought, let's try to understand this because it's just next to us, because I'm based in the Pretoria Botanical Gardens, so it's easy for us to just do a short case study to understand what has happened. And with this case study, we wanted to understand the underlying reasons to say, why did it take 2 decades to declare this site if it's found within the threatened vegetation type and it's got a critical ecosystem? And then I tried to use the mixed research method because there were some numbers that I had to deal with and some data that was coming from the people. And of course I was using the questionnaire survey as the primary resource. So when I was reaching out to the local residents, they told me that they were not alone. They were also having other parties. And all these parties were all having specific responsibilities. And I then tried to categorize them according to their roles, which you will see probably in the next slide. And we had primary stakeholders, we had secondary, and we had tertiary stakeholders. So this is a slide that shows what each stakeholder was doing to realize the proclamation of this wetland. So in the first case, is community members. They were mobilizing each other with the support of government. And these communities were not just doing it as individuals, they were doing it as, they called themselves Friends of Colby. And in the first decade, there was a first group that died along the way, and then a new one was resuscitated. So it was a very interesting scenario. And the second one is, of course, government. Whenever I want to come out, they always push communities to go and do things, knowing that their political principles will say no. And then you have tertiary, which is your NGOs, your WWF, and all these other institutions. Then proceeding further, so I tried to look at some of the factors that were making these stakeholders work together, although local residents were the ones at the front. And I realized that they agree, they negotiate. No decision is taken without discussion, and they are all committed to their responsibilities. And they always prioritize activities with that have less financial need. And the fact that it's independent, yes, the municipality holds the administrative power, but everything that happens in the wetland is held by whoever stakeholder volunteered to lead. And also the fact that all the stakeholders found the wetland to be very close to their workplace, their homes, and everything. And then I tried to make a scan of what is it that could be making them find it difficult. In fact, looking at the journey they took to embark on this. And they told me that, yes, they're happy that the wetland is proclaimed, but for now, we are all frightened by the fact that ever since it was declared, fence is always down. There's not even those things to show what's going on in the nature reserve. So as a result, other fence sitters might think, okay, now that you are struggling, it means you are looting, you are taking the money that was supposed to go there. So it's corruption again. And the other thing is, because people are looking for jobs and many other things, they might say, yeah, it's another opportunity to block development. And something that also brings us to racial tension, to say, okay, is this community, they have made it in life, we are poor, they don't want those things. And then at some point I realized that the allocation of responsibilities within the stakeholders is not fair. Others are doing so much, others are doing less, and there's no process of monitoring who's doing what at what level. And I also feel the community that surrounds the wetland, there are 500,000, and over 300,000 are Black African communities. But people who are active in the Friends of Colbin are only, in fact, almost 100% white community. So my question was, why were there no blacks? And I got to understand why, which is the chance that I will have is the time. Yeah, so then, and the other thing is, because of the poor fence and other things, you find all these homeless people residing there, doing all sorts of things, and kidnapping women. The day before I came here, I just went there and I found some terrible news about the site. So it's becoming very dangerous, even for people who are passing. So I tried to pick up some lessons, and this is very critical. So the reason why it took so long for the site to be declared from one stakeholder that I interviewed is officials are obsessed with hectares. And they're saying that is the only way they get bonuses. They say, you're talking about Colbin, it's 60 hectares. Yes, it's addressing 3 things, and you're also covering and whatever. But if there is mechanism on the other end, and I've got a 3 million budget to push, then what do? I go for that one. And so I think we have to find a way of finding a balance between hectares and the ecosystems type that we need to protect. Just give me a sec. And then the other thing is institutions with the biodiversity mandate, they really need support. And I do feel that money cannot be an excuse for everything, as we always put. And I also feel community of practice, people who are interested in certain things, they must work together, and that way we'll be able. So I think this should be the last slide. And on behalf of Tracy, she could not be here. She said I must say thank you very much.